Hello and welcome to China Now. My name is Makiza Latifa. Let's get started with China Current, where Kris will give you the weekly news report of what's been trending in China. It features some news about Ukraine and then also news about tourism in China, as the state media report indicates that the number of South Korean tourists who visited China last month exceeded 140,000, marking a staggering increase compared to the same period last year. And then also Kris will give you some news about the resignation of the former Chinese foreign minister from the National People's Congress delegation, according to an official announcement by the Standing Committee of the NPC. These and many more stories are coming up shortly. Stay tuned.
China Current is a weekly news talk show from China to the world. We cover viral news about China every week and also give you the newest updates on China's cutting-edge technologies. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to China Currents. I'm Kris. Let's start this episode with the news about Ukraine. On February 26th, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson responded to Alexei Goncharenko's claim in a regular press conference. Goncharenko, a member of the Ukrainian parliament, said in an interview recently that Kyiv is ready to support US in a fight against China, North Korea, Iran, or any other country. One important lesson from the Ukraine crisis is that bloc confrontation cannot bring security, said the spokesperson Mao Ning. Mao stressed that China will continue to play a constructive role in resolving the crisis for being a responsible major country. The response aligns with the statement made by China's top diplomat, Wang Yi. Head of the foreign ministry, met with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba earlier on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference. Notably, Wang appreciated again the Ukrainian side for helping Chinese nationals evacuate in emergency 2 years ago, saying that Chinese people will never forget. Wang also stressed that China doesn't sell lethal weapons to the parties involved and committed that the country will continue to play a unique, constructive role in promoting peace, which is credited with its close relations with Russia and is irreplaceable by the more confrontational Western countries. Despite Goncharenko's aggressive provocation recently, China has insisted on its position of restoring peace as long as there is a glimmer of hope, as Wang said. Next up, according to China's state media reports on February 26th, the number of South Korean tourists visiting China last month exceeded 140,000, marking a staggering 908% increase compared to the same period last year. As reported by South Korea's Yonhap, China ranks among the top 4 preferred tourist destinations for travelers. Data from the Chinese travel platform Ctrip also reveals that Korean tourists ranked 3rd in tourism orders during the Spring Festival holiday period in early February. To meet the growing demand of Korean tourists visiting China, various South Korean airlines are gradually resuming previously suspended routes due to the COVID-19 pandemic. South Korean tourists have shown a particular fondness for Zhangjiajie, a city known for its mountainous geopark with pillar-like formations. According to data from the South Korean travel agency, since the beginning of this year, consumers under the age of 60 accounted for 66% of the booking for Zhangjiajie tourism products. The city's official statistics indicate that in 2023, Zhangjiajie received 687,400 inbound tourists, with over 280,000 of them coming from South Korea, accounting for 41% of the total number. Besides natural attractions like Zhangjiajie, there has been a noticeable increase in the demand for urban tourism and recreation, with more Korean tourists choosing to visit cities such as Shanghai and Qingdao, which are relatively close to South Korea. Yet, with further progress of the visa-free policy for entry into Hainan, the southernmost island province of China, travel packages in the region have garnered significant attention from South Korean tourists. Next up, space. China's space station is set to enter a regular operational mode as it progresses toward becoming a permanent fixture in space. According to the recently released China Aerospace Science and Technology Blue Book 2023 by China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, the space agency plans to conduct approximately 100 launch missions throughout 2024. The operational goals for China's space station in 2024 include the completion of 2 cargo spacecraft missions, 2 manned spacecraft launches, and 2 return missions. Additionally, the launch of the Queqiao-2 relay satellite, which will provide communication support between the lunar far side and the Earth, is also planned. Another key mission involves the launch of Chang'e 6 lunar probe, which aims to achieve the world's first sampling and return mission from the lunar South Pole. The transition of China's space station into regular operational mode signifies a significant step forward in the country's space exploration endeavors. As China continues to make great strides in space science and technology, the nation is poised to play an increasingly influential role in shaping the future of space exploration and further contributing to the peaceful development of outer space. Next up, on February 27th, Fujian Jinhua Integrated Circuit Corporation, a Chinese state-owned chipmaker, was finally vindicated by the court after being blacklisted by the U.S. Commerce Department for over 5 years. The U.S. Justice Department in 2018 announced an indictment against Fujian Jinhua, alleging it stole intellectual property from U.S.-based Micron Technology. In the same year, U.S. authorities added the Chinese firm to a list of entities that cannot buy components, software, or technology goods from U.S. firms. On Tuesday, U.S. District Judge Maxim M. Chesney in San Francisco found the company not guilty following a non-jury trial. Chesney concluded that U.S. prosecutors failed to prove that Fujian Jinhua misappropriated proprietary data from Micron Technology. He Wei-wen, a senior fellow from the Center for China and Globalization, points out that many allegations raised by the U.S. against China might be overturned if they were actually heard in U.S. court system, as a lot of allegations have been fabricated and based on inference. Next up, on the 28th, Qin Tai-shi, former president of Taiwan Islands Industrial Technology Research Institute, Bern Lin, former vice president of TSMC, and Chang Tai-she, professor of economics at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, jointly published an article titled "How America's Chip Act Hurts Taiwan." They unanimously believe that the global semiconductor industry was originally a scientifically specialized industrial chain where each segment focused on its own expertise. This not only fosters technological advancements, but also serves as a risk mitigation strategy. However, under Joe Biden's CHIP Act, the subsidies provided by the United States may seem substantial, but they are insufficient to build another semiconductor ecosystem. In terms of chip manufacturing, specialized expertise and skilled workers are crucial. While the United States excels in chip design, it lacks the willingness or technology for chip manufacturing. TSMC's factories in the United States suffer from a shortage of workers, resulting in a production cost being 50% higher than those on the Taiwan island. Meanwhile, the United States is promoting semiconductor manufacturing localization through the CHIP Act. The U.S. Department of Commerce plans to provide Intel with $10 billion subsidy, while TSMC not only receives a significantly smaller subsidy compared to Intel, but also may face delays in receiving the funds. In light of these comparisons, many Taiwanese believe that the United States is attempting to gain control over TSMC's technology through the CHIP Act. Next up, on February 27th, Qin Gang, the former Chinese foreign minister, announced his resignation from the National People's Congress delegation, according to an official announcement by the Standing Committee of the NPC. The annual session of the National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, collectively known as the Two Sessions, are scheduled to commence next week. Prior to the upcoming meetings, the Standing Committee of the NPC convened its final session, during which they announced the acceptance of Qin Gang's resignation from the 14th NPC delegation representing the Tianjin delegation. The announcement also mentioned the dismissal of 7 other delegates, while a total of 4 delegates, including Qin Gang, voluntarily resigned, resulting in the termination of the qualifications of 11 representatives. Last year, following Qin Gang's removal, Wang Yi, a member of the Communist Party's Politburo, took on the additional role of foreign minister. Speculation has been rife that a new foreign minister might be announced during the upcoming NPC session. Next up, as the annual National Two Sessions approach, Zhao Changlong, a member of the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and a full-time deputy chairperson of the Minjin Tianjin Committee, has submitted a proposal titled on improving medical and health services and safeguard levels to construct a birth-friendly society. Zhao, who previously served as Director of Health and Family Planning Committee of Beichen District, Tianjin, noted that provision of pain-free childbirth services falls far short of demand, and most regions of the country have not included it in the medical insurance system. In light of these issues, Zhao suggests expansion of pain-free labor services and improving the childbirth experience. He also recommends that the medical and health system actively work on piloting and promoting pain relief labor services. Policies should favor the training of midwives and anesthetists specialized in pain relief labor, adjustments to medical services charges, and medical insurance reimbursement policies. Furthermore, he stresses the importance of enhancing publicity about pain-free childbirth to pregnant women and their families, providing high-quality, convenient, comfortable, safe, and privacy-protecting services for women giving birth, and reducing cesarean section rate. Last but not least, on February 26th, the Secretary of the Party Committee and Minister of the Ministry of Emergency Management, Wang Xiangxi, presided over a meeting of the Party Committee and Ministry Affairs Committee. The meeting emphasized the importance of adopting more targeted and pragmatic measures to ensure a stable safety situation in preparation for the successful convening of upcoming two sessions, the annual meetings of the National Legislature and the top political advisory body. The conference underscored the determination to prevent and contain major accidents, drawing profound lessons from recent fire incidents. It urged local authorities to focus on three types of venues and high-rise residential buildings to thoroughly investigate and rectify all kinds of fire safety risks and hidden dangers. This meeting also called for concentrated efforts to address prominent issues such as banning electric bikes from entering buildings and residential units. On February 23rd, a fire broke out in an apartment in Nanjing. 15 people were killed. The cause of the fire was later identified as a failed battery on an electric bike. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching this episode of China Currents. If you have any thoughts and comments about our show, please reach us at the email address below. I'm Kris, looking forward to hearing from you, and see you next time.
And that does it for this week's episode of China Currents. Next on the show is Threshold with Lisa, where we get updates on the cutting-edge technological innovations happening in China that have life-changing potential. In today's edition, Lisa will be diving into AI chips and specifically talking about the rise of Chinese players and the changes that they bring to the game. Over to you, Lisa.
Since 2023, there was a significant increase in the use of large language models, which led to a high demand for AI chips. This demand propelled NVIDIA, a company known for its gaming graphic processing unit, GPUs, to the forefront of the industry. NVIDIA performance skyrocketed, making its CEO, Jackson Hinkle, the richest person of Chinese descent globally. However, new competitors emerged, ready to challenge NVIDIA's dominance. One of these competitors is Huawei, a Chinese company identified as a major rival by NVIDIA. Hi, I'm Lisa, and this is Threshold in China. Today we are diving into AI chips, specifically the rise of Chinese players and the changes they bring to the game. NVIDIA listed Huawei as a major competitor in its annual report filed with the US Securities and Exchange Commission on February 21st. Intel, AMD, Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, and Baidu are also on the list, but Huawei was listed as a major competitor. Why is this? Well, there are two reasons for this. Firstly, the global landscape of advanced process chips is changing rapidly, and these chips are what drives AI technology. NVIDIA said the market for a product is intensely competitive and is characterized by rapid technological change and evolving industry standards. It also stated in its reports that Huawei is a competitor in 4 of its 5 main businesses categories, like supplying GPUs, CPUs, and other chips used for AI. The company sees Huawei as a major player in the cloud service industry, has teams dedicated to design hardware and software that include accelerated or AI computing features. These solutions are used internally by Huawei for their own platform and services. Secondly, with US restrictions on advanced chip export to China, Huawei's products became attractive alternatives. Huawei's Ascend 910B was launched last year, and it has emerged as a viable alternative to NVIDIA's A100 chips in the Chinese market. The Ascend 910B is believed to succeed the Ascend 910, which Huawei released in August 2019, and at the time, Huawei claimed that it was the world's most powerful AI processor. 3 months later, in November 2019, Huawei was put on a trade blacklist by the US Commerce Department. According to the chief analyst of Semi-Analyst, a San Francisco-based semiconductor research firm, the Huawei 910B can compete with NVIDIA's A100 empowering AI algorithms, saying that, quote, it is a bit above the A100 theoretically. The chip boosts single-card computing power comparable to NVIDIA's A100. It's made using advanced 7nm technology and has an impressive 69,000 AI cores. This means that it can perform tasks efficiently while using less power. It also supports various types of data and algorithms, so it can be used in many different situations. Huawei also has its own AI ecosystem, similar to NVIDIA's CUDA framework. Although it doesn't have as many registered developers as CUDA, Huawei has its platform, Compute Architecture for Neural Networks. This platform connects the Ascend hardware and software, and it also has an AI framework called MindSpore. These tools are essential for unlocking the full power of AI computing. Huawei introduced its new AI chip around the same time as the release of the Mate 60 Pro smartphone last August. Companies like Baidu, Tencent, and Alibaba has been important customers of NVIDIA for a long time. However, during the US increasing export controls on China, Chinese companies are starting to reduce their reliance on US technology. For example, Baidu ordered 1,600 Huawei 910B chips last year. Another Chinese AI company, iFlyTech, launched its Facing One computing platform based on Huawei's Ascend chips. With a growing focus on generative AI and tighter US sanctions, Huawei has increased its capacity for producing AI chips. In an interview last year, Jason Huang described Huawei as a really good company. However, it is not just Huawei that poses a challenge to NVIDIA. Another Chinese company called MoreThreads, established in 2020, aims to become the NVIDIA of China and has gained significant attention and popularity in a short period. MoreThread has a technology called Musa and is similar to NVIDIA's CUDA. This allows developers to easily switch between platforms. They also offers a diverse product line to cater to different needs, demonstrating their commitment to compete. Their MTT S3000 GPU performs close to NVIDIA's A100, and their desktop S80 rivals NVIDIA's RTX 3060. It's clear MoreThreads is a strong player in the GPU market. All that said, it is not difficult to see that the restrictive policies of the United States have created conditions for Chinese companies to develop AI chips. This puts NVIDIA in a difficult situation. The Chinese market is large and has a clear demand for high-performance AI chips. Analysts estimate that China's AI chip market in total is worth up to $7 billion. And this gave rise to the increased numbers of firms capable of producing them. NVIDIA has developed 2 new AI chips specifically for the Chinese market and has provided customers with sample products. However, due to the regulatory restrictions, Chinese manufacturers may not be able to buy these chips in large quantities. This move by NVIDIA is seen as an attempt to protect its dominant position in the Chinese market. NVIDIA's concerns go beyond just revenue. They are more worried about China building its own AI ecosystem, which could potentially threaten the status of its global ecosystem. The US sanctions have unintentionally gave a big advantage to NVIDIA's Chinese rivals. which now have access to a huge market and a platform to refine and enhance their products. This has allowed them to catch up in the field and generate significant profit along the way. And this is today's Threshold. We hope this series of videos can provide you with insight into the complex dynamics of the US-China tech war. If you have different views or additional perspectives, please leave your comments. We are so interested to know.
Next on the show is Overlap, which is an exclusive program produced by the China Academy. This episode features a conversation between Tianchen, a current affairs commentator based in China, and Jackson Hinkle, who is also a current affairs commentator and the host of the independent news show, The Dive in America. And their discussion will feature prominently questions about how MAGA Communists perceive China. Now, the concept of MAGA communism is to apply Marxism-Leninism to the American context to challenge the political establishment. So let's keep rolling to find out more.
Welcome to Overlap, brought to you by Wave Media. I am Tianchen. I'm happy to be joined by Jackson Hinkle today. Jackson, can you make a brief introduction of yourself?
I'm Jackson Hinkle. I'm very happy to be here. I'm the host of the independent news show, The Dive with Jackson Hinkle in America. Cover foreign policy issues, and it's my first time in China, so happy to be here.
Jackson has like more than 2 million followers on X. And what happened to your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So that was my main platform. YouTube was for like the past 3 years, talking about a lot of issues, but mainly the Russia-Ukraine war when that was going on and the development of BRICS and the multipolar world. And when I recently visited Russia for the first time several months ago, I guess the censorship team at YouTube didn't agree with my views on Russia. I'm very pro-Russia. I was showing people that, the sanctions against Russia really haven't hurt them. They've, in fact, thrived in the face of it. And because of all that stuff, they permanently banned my channel. So it's no longer existent, unfortunately.
So you can't get a second account?
They banned me on YouTube,
Okay.
Twitch, PayPal, Venmo, WhatsApp, and a whole lot of other platforms, because if you challenge like the orthodoxy in the United States, specifically surrounding war and foreign policy, they just have to cancel you because it's too much truth for them.
So only Elon Musk give you a chance?
Yep, only Elon Musk. There's a few smaller platforms, like there's one called Rumble that's an alternative to YouTube, but X, formerly Twitter, is the main one. It's where really like all the most important people in the Western world go to debate ideas. So I'm happy that, he's taken it over and let me stay.
I would say that would be an honor to get canceled by them.
It is a bit of a badge of honor.
But it's not in a good way in terms of the influence.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you know you are pretty popular in China?
I guess I've kind of learned that since I've been here, but it's been cool to meet so many creators and who are famous on like Bilibili or the other platforms, and then they were familiar with me, so that was really cool.
It's because like one of the posts went viral here on Chinese internet because you posted a picture comparing the situation of Xinjiang and the Gaza area. So that won hundreds, thousands of fans for you.
Yeah, it is a really stark contrast when you look at the photos or people vlogging and filming themselves around Xinjiang. And it's so incredible to me that there are various states, various organizations that are funded by the CIA and affiliated groups who are trying to push the narrative that there's something bad going on in Xinjiang. But if you look at the stats, you'd know that Muslims are treated better here than they are in America, for starters. There is nothing bad going on there. It's actually China's trying to, provide some sort of economic invigoration to the people there, and they're succeeding in that. And that's why the West is lying so much about it. They're trying to, stop China from succeeding in building it up and bringing more prosperity to the people. But unfortunately, there's a lot of Americans who still believe that there's something bad going on there.
So when did you guys see this sharp comparison? Is it why you started to promote the MAGA communism? Can you just briefly introduce the idea? Because to be honest, when I first saw these words together, I thought that was a weird, if not crazy idea.
Yeah. MAGA communism, it's really interesting because the Trump campaign was an outsider campaign. He's an outsider figure, but even more so, the Make America Great Again voter base of his movement is really beholden to nobody, even Trump. They will call out Trump if he has bad stances on the Ukraine war or certain issues. And I think that's admirable because that movement at its core is a working class movement. It's like the first time we've had class consciousness reintroduced into the American political debate for the first time in decades. So the whole idea of it started with my friend Haas of the Infrared Show. He went around to Trump rallies and events across America and was talking to average Trump voters. They're portrayed as far right, but when you actually go talk to people on the streets, they're upset with the World Economic Forum. They're upset with BlackRock buying up all of our land in America. They're upset with Big Pharma. They're upset with the permanent war state we live in. They're upset with Wall Street. And at its core, they just want a country that is for Americans, a nation amongst nations that will work with countries like Russia and China to build a better future. And I think that's really beautiful, and it kind of is the essence of communism. It's a country for the people to uplift our standard of living and increase our prosperity. It's like the desires of the people here as well, and something that she has been able to fulfill in large part. So that's where MAGA communism came from, and it's made a lot of waves.
Mm-hmm. Can I interpret it as only communism can save America?
100%, yes. Only communism can save America. That's a perfect way of putting it. The way we usually talk about it is a country that will focus on development, production, manufacturing, rather than a hyper-financialization of our markets. And in the process of doing that, an economy that will actually value and benefit the people of the country at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So let's get to the young people in the States, because we know that a large portion of your fans are young people, and you yourself is also from Generation Z, I guess. Yeah, of course. So how do the young people in the States, how do they view the domestic and international politics? Do they still care about it? And if not, what do they care the most?
I think it's a really interesting time in America because so much of the younger generation, it seems like they almost care more about foreign policy and foreign politics than even our own domestic situation. Yeah, I mean, you look at Twitter right now, or you look at any social media platform, look at the major creators and political influencers. They're all talking about Ukraine or Israel or Gaza or whatever it might be. I do that as well, of course, but my focus is always stop the madness that's ensuing, and let's focus back on American politics. So I think that's where MAGA communism kind of comes in handy, because it's like that's the end goal, but first we have to stop all these pointless wars and sanctions and government interference, coups, regime change operations. But you have to think about it like, I'm 24, so my whole life America's been waging wars, whether in like Iraq or Afghanistan, Syria, now Russia and Gaza. So we kind of just grew up with this permanent warfare, permanent war state. And now we're headed towards World War III. So I think a lot of young Americans are concerned about that. They understand that this is where the first problem they really need to address to help build our country back up and fix things here at home and work with other nations in a more peaceful manner. So yeah, I think a lot of Gen Z just have kind of lived this experience, and that's why they're so concerned about everything.
So most of them, like, they care less about like who's in house, if Biden or Trump.
I think they see a lot of the internal politics. It's a different name, but it's the same policies, you know? So you could have 400 people in the Congress.
You can't make a difference. So
yeah. The goal, I guess, is to, through talking about all these various issues, it's to bring about the complete destruction of the current structure of our state as we know it and usher in something new that will actually prioritize the people's needs.
So I know there is a broad distrust of the major institution among the US people, but is there a much lower level of trust among the younger generation towards the mainstream media and also the main institution?
Yeah, yeah. Even like the primary issue right now for foreign policy is the war in Israel or Gaza, and older people in America are far more likely to support, whatever Joe Biden is doing on that issue. Younger people almost in unison, like 85% oppose what Joe Biden is doing in Gaza. So there's far less trust. Younger people are flocking to alternative media sources rather than watching.
Like yours?
Yeah, like mine. And that's how we're winning, by being able to show people the truth and convince them. But that's just where young people are.
So can you just give some significant events that people start to realize how many lies they are telling? I know you fight with the CNBC and this kind of channels before, and that makes you much more popular among the audience.
The past few years, it's just been crazy. There's a popular influencer in the West right now. His name's Andrew Tate, and he calls what is essentially attacking all of the truth tellers the Matrix. And it really is kind of a Matrix, like from that film with Keanu Reeves, because everything that they've said over the past, 8 years has been just complete and utter lies. Like you look at the Russiagate collusion hoax with Donald Trump, that ended up being a huge lie. You look at everything that happened with the end of Trump's presidency. They tried to impeach him over, a phone call with Volodymyr Zelensky. That all ended up being a lie. In America, the media has made a mockery of themselves because anyone that doesn't agree with the mass media, they call a racist or a misogynist or a white supremacist or like they have all these names that they just throw out, and they've kind of just made fools of themselves because no one believes it anymore when truth tellers get attacked. Most recently, the biggest issues have been what's gone on with the war in Russia and, starting that war, agitating Russia, breaking previous promises, sanctioning Russia, all that stuff. I was looking at CNN. They still believe at CNN that Ukraine is going to win this war against Russia. It's like they're living in a parallel universe.
I think they start to back off a little bit.
A little bit, but there's still, people.
That was a sign.
It's crazy. It's crazy what's going on. So all those, if you've been politically aware for the past 8 years and you've lived through all of that and you look at it all, you can't help but not trust the media after all that, So how did they react to you? Like when you went up and to argue with these big guys? They call me names. They call me all sorts of names. I mean, if you look at my Wikipedia page, it's just filled with completely libelous claims about me, saying I'm this, that, and the other, all these crazy smears. But that's usually all they have. I'll go on Piers Morgan or I'll go on talk with Chris Cuomo or whatever, and they just kind of laugh, but like laugh at our ideas and say, oh my gosh, you're pro-Russia, you're pro-China, like how could you? You're pro-Palestinian resistance, how could you? But their laughs eventually turn to tears when the rest of the world wakes up and sees that this is the truth, So that's all they can really do, because they can't bait the matter on any sort of fair ground, or else they themselves would look like, lunatics.
That was a lot for the background. So let's get back to the MAGA communism. So how do the younger generation view the communism and especially MAGA communism?
Unfortunately, communism in the West has become synonymous with just cultural liberalism for a lot of people. And it's just so different if you go to Russia or Eastern Europe or China or wherever, it's like anywhere that's not influenced by Western finance capital in a nefarious way. People here understand what communism is all about. It's for the common people, uplifting people. And America, communism for the right and the left has kind of become synonymous with like a college-aged person with pink or blue hair, and their pronouns are like they, them. It's like crazy stuff. promoting a lot of cultural degeneracy and trying to break up the family unit, all these sorts of things. So it's very sad, but I think that one of the beautiful things about this, movement of MAGA communism, and I guess like the chief leaders of the movement, like Haas, who I mentioned earlier, is an effort to actually explain to people what communism is. When they hear MAGA communism, they're like, what? And then you explain what it is, and they're like, oh, so communism isn't about this cultural liberalism. It's not about, having pink hair and going to the BLM protests or something like that. It's about something substantive. It's about changing the nature of how our country operates and uplifting the collective prosperity of the people. And I think that's it's been a net positive, because a lot of people have learned, about Stalin, about Mao, about what even the Kim dynasty has been able to achieve in the DPRK. And so I think it's been a net positive.
So how do they perceive China, and in their minds, can China represent communism? And I believe the communism China definitely different from MAGA communism.
Mm-hmm. I think that when it boils down to it, MAGA communism, communism in America, in the same way that you have communism with Chinese characteristics, and it is distinctly different from Soviet communism, American communism will be communism with American characteristics based on our history, our culture, our people, and the very unique problems that we face, because we are in the belly of the beast with all these issues. And our government is the heart of all evil. It is this satanic cabal. So we have very unique challenges. Yeah, we have all those unique issues that we have to address in America, and that's why it will be communism with American characteristics. As for how Westerners and Americans, and specifically younger Americans, perceive China, I think that the vast majority of people do perceive China as communist, but there's this weird thing in America where no one wants to admit that communism is successful, right? So when people talk about China and they utter their lies about China, whether it's about the Uyghurs or whether it's about they have these crazy lies that they talk about in the mainstream media about how a social credit system is destroying the fabric of society here. When they talk about anything that they don't like about China, they say China's communist, it's bad, that's why we can't have communism here. But then when they talk about the success of the Chinese civilization and how incredible certain parts of it are that they do sometimes admit to in the mainstream press, they say, well, yeah, China's successful, very successful in some capacities, but it's not really communist, So they kind of flip back and forth based on how they want to portray China. Overall, I think that most people in America really don't understand China. They don't understand the culture. They definitely don't understand the very long history of China. They don't have a clear grasp on, and this is something I think I've even reckoned with since I've been here, and I've seen the intense levels of development and hyper-focus on emerging economies that China is truly mastering and succeeding in accomplishing. People don't understand how far China is ahead of the rest of the world regarding all these matters. It's incredible. Going to visit all the places that, I've been in my short trip here, even going to Huawei or going to the, exclusive economic zone for free trade where they have Tesla and a bunch of, hydrogen facilities, aircraft facilities. It is truly incredible. And I think that's something that Americans don't understand, is how successful it already is.
Mm-hmm. So here's a big disconnect from the reality and the image China shows on international. So do you have any suggestions for that, for the publicity thing?
I guess my suggestions is to just be proud of the successes that you guys have already had in China. And Americans, when they think about innovation and leading countries, sometimes they think about Dubai, or they think about UAE, Saudi Arabia, and the big cities that they're building
Israel.
there. Not Israel. But they think about those places where they're just building these massive skyscrapers and stuff, that sort of thing. But the place that I went to yesterday, I think it's called Lingang or something. It's
the port.
Yeah, you go there. That blows everything in the UAE out of the water. It is so much more impressive. So I think it's more difficult because we have natural blockades in place on social media between our two countries. But I think just showing people that, explaining to people that the mainstream media has lied to them about everything in America, so of course they're going to be lying about China. They don't care about you guys, they just want to tear your country apart. I think it's good to remind people that.
There are more and more influencers and like vloggers, and they came to China and they made like short videos of that. Some of them also went viral on the social media platform, I believe. Yeah, if not get blocked.
Everything I've posted, people have been either they know already about it and the incredible nature of it, or they haven't seen it and they're so surprised by it.
Definitely. So let's get back to the US. So recently there has been considerable controversy within the prestigious universities like Harvard due to, we all know, the Israeli and Palestinian conflict. And I know that the presidents of the universities, they are forced to quit, and there's protest going on campus all the time. So we can see they're kind of like in a dilemma, I would say. Like they cannot ignore everything happened in Gaza, but they can neither like stand with Palestine. So does that situation representative in the US right now, based on your observation?
Yeah, that's just a small microcosm of everything that's going on with the issue of free speech. That is the most important foundation of our country, is this, supposed free speech we're supposed to have. But like I've mentioned, we don't really have it. You get banned everywhere if you tell the truth about these issues. But the thing about the conflict in Gaza, it is the first time that I think the overwhelming majority of the public has kind of said, what's happening here is bad, and they've met an overwhelming pressure to not say that stuff, to censor themselves, whether it's in corporate entities, whether it's in universities, as you just mentioned, whether it's mainstream media news organizations, or even in politics. Like you're not allowed to talk about this issue in particular, and there's so much censorship around it. Even at those universities, there's been protests for Gaza. And what happens is when the students go out and protest, or they write letters to their administrations about these issues, there will be a concerted effort to make lists of the names of the people who went to these protests and prevent them from getting jobs after they graduate at law firms. But the last thing I'll say about those professors and the one at Harvard is they are very liberal. So there's a lot of liberals that still support Palestine, but they're extremely liberal. And when it comes to all of the issues that have, risen to the forefront of public debate in America over the past 10 or so years, they've always taken the side of these debates that says we must censor anyone who's racist and doesn't support Black Lives Matter. We must censor anyone who is saying that transgenderism is a mental illness. They're pro-censorship on all these issues. They align with the government on all these issues. The one time they speak out about one critical issue against the government narrative, they find themselves kicked out of Harvard University. And I think that's very interesting.
So that was in Harvard, and that was in Columbia and MIT. So does that also representative among the common people?
No.
Not really?
No. I mean, the decisions to remove them from their positions?
No, I mean just like kind of they are trying to move from the Israel side and to the Palestinian side.
Yeah. The common people of America, not as much as China, but in America, the overwhelming majority supports Gaza and the Palestinian resistance. But since I've been here, I haven't talked to one person who supports Israel, which is, it was kind of a surprise, but young people in particular truly support Gaza, like 85%, very overwhelming odds. The problem is that a lot of the people in powerful positions who make decisions in America, they are, I guess, Zionists find their power in finance capital, in the ruling class. Not to say that they are all, Israelis or Zionists themselves, but that's where they take their power from. And because of that, you can't really find yourself in a position of power unless you agree with Zionism. Average people support Gaza.
So do you see the education level play a role in how people form their political perspective? I would say like behind the education level is their economic status, because education is so divided in the US.
Yeah, it's kind of education level and economic. It's almost kind of synonymous in America, because if you don't have money, if your family doesn't have money, you're not going to, these colleges are like minimum $20,000 a year. But in most cases, if you're going out of your own state to attend university, it's like $40,000 to $80,000 a year. Those things are kind of synonymous. I didn't go to college, so I feel like almost if I had gone to college, I may have been influenced by all of the liberal imperialist propaganda that they instill in the students at these universities. There's, of course, notable exceptions, but for the most part, all of the professors at these colleges and universities, if they were to speak out against the permanent war state, if they were to speak out against what the US government has done in Syria or Russia or is doing to China with regard to the lies about Taiwan and Xinjiang, they would find themselves out of a job very quickly. So there's this, it's truly a liberal bubble in all of the universities all across our nation. And I think that's why you have, I guess, the problems we do and why the MAGA movement is depicted as lower class, uneducated. You know, the class and the lack of education kind of frees them of the propaganda they would have otherwise faced.
Yeah, I can see that. So back to the younger generations, what are the main concerns of the young Americans today? Because we see in China, we have a nascent popular culture called lying flat. So it's basically the young people are promoting that we don't get married, we don't get kids, and we just slack off at work, and we have lower desires, so we don't have to consume a lot. So that's basically they are trying to express their concerns, and they feel the inequalities towards this society.
I guess that's kind of tied to the economic health of your nation. In America, when Trump was in office, there was such a swing culturally in one direction, and everyone was fearful of being labeled racist, anti-gay, anti-trans, all that stuff. Now we're kind of swinging back in the opposite direction, and people are focused on real bread and butter issues. The youth are focusing on our economy, inflation. They are fearful about the fact that America is not tapping into our valuable resources like our oil and stuff because of that basic goods are so expensive. They're very fearful about high housing prices and the lack of a basic social welfare state. I was talking to some people here in China about what does it look like for young people in terms of accessibility to healthcare, schooling, housing, when you get older, Social Security once you retire. And they explained it to me and I was like, wow, that's pretty it's all encompassing. Like they've got you guys covered for the most part, maybe not housing, but all the other things are pretty covered. In America, we have nothing. We have 80 million people who have no insurance or virtually no insurance. And if you have to go to the hospital, you have to pay tens of thousands of dollars. Housing in cities,
it's getting crazy now.
It's crazy. In the Midwest, it's a little bit more mellow. Social Security is not enough to really sustain life for most people once they retire. And when it comes to education, we just talked about it. It's very expensive, and it's not really educating anyone. It's propagandizing people. So I think that Americans are focused on those issues. I guess the main thing is the youth look at the fact that we spend $900 billion on our military every year. We spend more money than the next 10 largest countries' militaries combined. And we say, gosh, if we could use that money to fix the problems in America, crime, homelessness, and the other ones I just mentioned, we'd have such a beautiful country. But the interests of the ruling class are so far out of step with the interests of the average people.
So we have seen a lot about the classic US middle class life in movies and in TV shows, like how you get a decent, like huge urban house and with dogs and cats and you send your kids to private schools, and so that doesn't hold true anymore. But it used to be true, right?
Yeah. It used to be true. But now, I always describe it, our economy now is like when my grandparents were alive, You could work one job at a factory and you'd have everything you needed and money to go take a vacation once a year. Put your kids through school, you don't have to worry about anything. Now, we live in this Byzantine labyrinth of an economy. It's all speculation, debt, hedging your bets on stock. It's not real. We don't produce anything anymore. So those who are not at the skill level to participate in that section of the economy are delegated to work jobs like driving people around like Uber or delivering food for people, Uber Eats. They'll work those sorts of jobs. Then they got to work a job as a waitress or a chef on top of that. It's like you got to work 2-3 jobs, and then you have tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. The idea of even one day marrying someone, buying an engagement ring, buying a home, having kids, it is just so crazy to even think about that because everyone's just drowning in debt. Healthcare debt, student loan debt, auto loan debt, those who are lucky enough to get a home loan debt. So I think it's really, really bad. But the last part about it is when I said that we're kind of in a cultural swing right now back in the other direction, there is a common sentiment amongst younger people to know that they want to have kids. Like everyone wants to have kids. They want that traditional life. They want to be able to do all this stuff. In America, people want a lot of kids. I think that's kind of a trend that we're probably going to see amongst Generation Z is people, if they can afford it, having a lot of kids, which is good, I think. So we'll see what comes of the economy.
So how do they react to this reality? Like they don't, because young people here, they kind of choose to lying flat. And that's their way to say no to the lives they don't want to accept.
It's interesting you say that though, because I have heard that, but when I go out and I see China, all I see is people working, I see development, I see a level of development and production that is unparalleled to the US. So maybe it's because you have so many people here, I don't know.
I think if we compare to like last generation, we are kind of like slack off and we are pretty laid back. But if we compare to other young people in foreign countries, and we are still hardworking.
Yeah. In America, it's kind of just divided amongst our society. You have people who are very liberal, and I guess you have a divide here too, naturally, everyone does, but you have people who are very liberal. They like to do drugs, they like to, just sit at home and goof off, watch TV all day and stuff like that. Very ineffectual human beings. and then you have the other part of society that is, I guess you could say, consumed with the idea of making money for the sake of making money. This individualistic sort of mindset and approach when it comes to how to navigate the economy and work life. And I think that sort of mindset, better than the first one I described, but it's not as good as what I've seen in China, which is the idea that we can all work together for something bigger than ourselves and uplift, this rising boat, rising tide for everyone. I think that is the Marxist way to be able to say that you don't just make money for the sake of it like we do in America. You make money for a greater cause and you can increase the living standard of everyone in the process if we all work together.
That's the ultimate goal of communism. So thank you so much, Jackson, and welcome to China. And I'm already looking forward for your next trip here.
Yes. Thank you for having me on.
See you in Xinjiang.
Yeah, I definitely want to go there. Thank you for having me on, and I've had an incredible time here.
And that's all for this week's edition of the show. We are grateful that you made time to watch us. Please do not forget to send in your comments, thoughts, feedback, and suggestions through the email provided below. My name is Marquisa Latifa, and I will see you same time next week.